tried, they just say it's self-harm, which is a softer way of naming what exactly is going on. And the impact on urbanization, where we have a lot of people coming to the urban centers, people running away from the rural areas, looking for greener pastures in the urban centers. This creates a lot of isolation, people who don't know where to go. I mean, in the urban centers, it's very fast. You don't ask your neighbor how you are every single day, and you're always moving up and down. So when you're struggling with issues, you don't open up, then you end up isolating yourself, and it becomes harder to seek help because you don't even know where to seek the help. Now, that creates the niche for people to commit suicide even more because they don't know where to go. And especially those who move into the urban areas with all the stress that comes about with it, then we have more of the statistics within the urban areas as opposed to the rural areas. Now, when we look at what gender, male or female, are more to cause self-harm, it actually shows that more women and younger women at the age of averaging between 26 years are the ones who resort to overdoses, they resort to cutting, self-harm, and other measures due to different triggers that cause them to go this far. The triggers could actually come from family disputes, um, when they're young, educated, and they're facing a dense setting in the face, they face a lot of emotional isolation, despite being economically active and making them very highly vulnerable. Because even if you're having your economics right and your emotions are all wrong, then here you have a chance of not being able to cope because you're making it outside, but within yourself, your inner self is not actually being able to move forward. And this happens more with the women because the women are more sensitive and more emotional. And if they don't have a way to release their emotions in a correct way, for the lack of a better word, then they resort to overdoses, they resort to self-harm, and also tending more to addictions and stuff. Next, we look at what are the social drivers. The main social drivers are family distress, intense family stress, cultural stigma, role of faith, and the impact of migration. Now, when we look at family stress, people living in urban areas, they have more family quarrels. The settings that cause the conflicts, they're not dissolved in constructive ways. Hence, the dominant trigger for this self-harm is basically mostly family stress. When we look at what is happening in Kenya recently, we have people who actually kill the family, the children, the spouse, and then harm themselves. And this is all due to conflict within the family. When we look at what happens in the rural areas, you find people are able to sit down and resolve their conflicts in a constructive way, hence reducing the stress of family stress, reducing reducing the looking at suicide as a way out of all situations. And also, when we look at the family situation in the urban centers, economically, it's very stressful. When economic times like now, the present, is becoming very hard as we continue, people not being able to meet up their responsibilities also creates that niche for people to self-harm as well. And we see that relationships, lack of knowing how to manage and navigate relationships becomes a big problem, especially in urban areas where there's more of I'm here and I'm gone, I'm here and I'm gone. So committing suicide or harming themselves is something that they're able to do or choose that option because they're not able to cope with their emotional stress. Now, when we look also at the family dynamics, when people are struggling within themselves, this will tie down to the stigma. People don't talk about what is going on within their houses. Quite a number of people will want to show that everything is okay However, within themselves, when they're alone, everything is not okay. So this brings up that part that you're not able to manage your emotions. Psychologically, you're not well. Your mental health deteriorates at a very high rate. And then the only option that is visible at that specific time is harming yourself. So when we look at the families and then the impact of immigration, the rural urban immigration s- serve as support networks, leaving the elderly and the young people isolated in cities like Mombasa, exacerbating their vulnerability. You'll find it's very strange when you hear somebody who's elderly has harmed themselves, but it's because when they're left on their own, they're not able to do what they have to do as a basic necessity for daily life. And this creates a lot of resentment for themselves. And if they're not able to cope, then we have a high chance of them harming themselves at the same time. Those who come into the urban areas also, when they come with high expectations, thinking that everything is going to work out right as soon as they get to the urban centers, and then they find it is no different and it's man eat man society, then they become very, very vulnerable. And as I said before, they do not know where to go for help, and they're not able to go for that particular help. When we talk about cultural stigma, the taboos that we have and stigma around mental health and suicidal thoughts prevent men from seeking help, further complicating the issue. We much as we have looked at the statistics and see that more younger female will self-harm, we find that in the same statistics, older men who are above 40 to 50 are the ones who will actually self harm because they're not able to speak about it. Men have been taught, do not say what is your problem, manage it as a man, manage your emotions as a man. So instead of seeking help, they harm themselves, sometimes including the family, because they're not able to open up. There are not enough spaces for them to open up and discuss what it is that is seeking help actually. Then the other factor is the role of faith. Despite 90% of people being active in religious practices, faith alone is not enough to address the mental health crisis, as stigma still silences many people. So you find even in our churches, even in most of the religious institutions, they actually don't talk about openly about harming yourself. They don't talk about mental health. Hence, even when you're in church, even when you're seated around the communities in church, you have two personalities. That one is actually showing that everything is well, and when you come back home, nothing is happening. And faith, where we get our faith from, where we are told God will sort everything, God is going to do this and this for you, then at the same time you're praying and these things are not said, your mental health keeps going because everything within yourself is still being pressured. Not that this, but the same faith, the same religious places are the same places where we should be seeking our help. But because of the fact that most of the religious institutions still have that lack of idea of what to do with mental health crises or just mental health, it becomes a problem because we are not able to seek for help in the religious institutions. Before I continue, is there anybody who can comment about the family stress, impact of immigration, cultural stigma, or the role of faith? Anyone who has had an experience or heard of something about it? Any questions? Yes, Arcadia.
Maybe Karen is just to comment on cultural stigma. I'm looking at our culture, and and how it dictates. Where I come from, someone who has committed suicide, even how they are buried, even before they are buried, the talk that goes on around, makes someone feel like it is something that is so bad. And so when someone is maybe going through a difficult moment, then they'll feel like I don't have to share. You know, if someone dies of suicide, the way we treat them, in fact, where I come from, they are treated like even the burial is not does not have that respect. The speeches that are given are very demeaning. You know, so when someone goes through something and they feel that those around them are not going to help them, they'd rather give up rather than sharing. So they feel like, if after all they don't like me, so let me die in this way, that because that is how they don't like me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gara. I'll make a comment about that. Malion?
Mine is just a question. I just ask, how can you know that an elderly person is suicidal?
Okay. I'll go with, I'll comment on the cultural bit first. Now, when we look at the culture, when in some places, in fact, it's not just some places, it's everywhere, where when somebody committed or when somebody died of suicide, the family of that person was ostracized. Churches would not come in to bury that person. There'd be a lot of talk. This has it comes from two places actually. One, the fact that it was a criminal offense to commit suicide. So the family would cover up and try not to make it look like suicide because they would be arrested under the penal code in the law of Kenya. I can't remember the exact law. So people used to hide it because it was not something that was accepted that they gave up. Even in churches, they never used to. I know for a fact in the Catholic Church, if you died of suicide, nobody would come to bury you. They would just send probably the catechist or something because you have given up on yourself and you're going straight to hell. And so basically because of things like that, then there's no compassion for the family members. There's no trying to find out why the person decided to self-harm like that. And this now it became a bad thing for in quotes. It's a very, very bad thing. If somebody has died of suicide, let's just we don't even have matanga, we don't do anything, we just bury. How did they die? Then they come up with stories. Being that even when you're registered as at the place of birth and death, you're not registered as dead anymore because if the family went back to register, this would all come back to them because they would be arrested. These are some of the laws that were left by the colonialists when they came to Kenya, and that is what they taught and left us with. I say that because I'm not exactly sure with the research of before that. However, I know that the colonialists are the ones who brought this, and this has been something for the National Suicide Prevention Strategy, where they're trying to get rid of those old laws to at least be compassionate, even to the family that has remained, to the person. And once we are compassionate to the person, to the families of anybody who has actually died by suicide, then others would be able to see that I could seek help, because you'd be asking, why wouldn't you come to me? Why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you say this? And when we are open about it, not covering up the death and giving a different cause of death. This happens a lot because even with statistics from I think it is 2022, like 482 was it 482 from the span from the year 2010 to 282 to 20 480 bodies that were still in the morgue were disposed, and they were not collected by their families because they had died of suicide. So just to cut yourself off that. Now that creates a lot of stigma, and it's negative stigma, because then you're left feeling, even if I sought help, I'm not going to get help. I would actually be arrested. I would actually be um, taken to court, sued because I'm trying to take out my own life. As opposed to, we're trying to change that to look at it like it is not wrong. And with that, with the new year, as I said before, the decriminalization of suicide in 2025 was enacted. So at the moment, there is more compassion for families, and you find that families will also talk about it out in the open, allowing us to be able to show compassion to the family, hence passing on to others that when you need help, you can come out. You do not have to take the end. You do not have to take your own life. Now, to answer Marlion's question, how would you know an elderly person is going to commit suicide? The different signs for suicide, and they're all listed in the sense that when an elderly person um, either talks about the future in a way that, when I'm not there, and they haven't been talking about it, then and they stop doing things that they normally did, because even as you age, the things that you'll always do, and if they change their demeanor in the sense that they become too sad, they don't want to eat, they don't want to talk about anything, then you need to pay attention to signs like that. And also, if they've always been down, then all of a sudden they're up and happy, and they're talking very happily, and they look like they have all the hope for the future, then that's too you need to look at, because it goes both ways according to how it works within yourself and your emotions and the elderly person. I hope I've answered your question, Malion. Lily?
Yes, thank you for that insightful presentation. I'm just wondering, I've met a few, or I've rubbed shoulders with a few families where more than two or three of the family members have taken their own lives. They've committed suicide. So I'm wondering, is it an inherited thing or is it a caste thing? You know, people say all manner of things about it. Maybe you can enlighten me on this?
Okay. Like I've said, when in the past or up until now, even in some cultures now and in rural areas at the moment, when somebody dies by suicide, what happens is the family is ostracized by the rest. It might be out there loud, it might be silent, but the emotional effect, the psychological effect of the family is extremely high. So, plus and including with the stigma, then with no help sought, with no help given for them to deal with all the issues psychologically, then you find that they end up taking the same way, the same path, because they are now carrying their own emotions, they're carrying their own psychological issues and stresses, and then plus and including what they're getting from the family and the neighbors and everybody else who's around. Then there's also the aspect of, if we don't get help as the family of somebody who has died by suicide, there's the aspect of blame and guilt, which is something that needs to be worked through, because if it is not, it accumulates within yourself, and then without even being able to cope yourself, your mental health goes down, and that becomes the route that you can take. And that is why it seems, or it looks like, it is a cultural, it's something that occurs in a family. Those are some of the myths that we will hear. Or it is a generational curse, that's because the great grandfather died of suicide, so you are going to die. That is why that happens, because remember, the guilt, the blaming yourself, and then you're not able to open up about it. So even what you yourself you're feeling, because remember, if somebody of your family dies, the first thing you're going to ask is, why didn't you talk to me? Where was I? Why didn't I see this happening? Where did I? Then all those things are not things you're able to open up to others, to talk about it openly. Hence, it keeps eating within yourself, in your own emotions, in your own psyche. It eats yourself. Then at some point it'll change and it'll look like that's the easy way out. And that's why you'll find families who have people who have died by suicide, there'll be one or two or three or more within the family that continue, that will take that same path if they have not received help. I hope that answers you, Lily.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions or contributions?
Hello.
Yes, Tom?
Yes. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I would I would also maybe add a comment about intergenerational trauma. Uh, there are some traumas, there are some practices, there are some habits, there are some beliefs, there are some actions, there are some situations which are handed down from uh, the grandparents to the parents in the current situation. Um, so there is what is called familiarity. Familiarity is what you hear, what you've seen, what you've observed, what you felt, examples you've seen, um, and you participated in. There, there could be a likelihood that, if you grow up, you're being told, you can go to hell. You can even commit suicide like your grandfather. You can go to hell. There are certain things you've done and practiced and heard and felt. You know, I've also had experiences of in my own family where you find that the grandfather committed suicide, maybe another son committed suicide, now the grandson, one of them. But you find that it's something which has been observed, seen, and known in the family that it is one of the ways to cope. You know, um, it's a it's something which was done, and so like a son will look at and say, I mean, why should I go through this? I can as well do what my father did. I can as well do what my uncle did. So it's culturally observed and felt. So, and when you look down deep inside, you might find that uh, intergenerational trauma could be very deeply entrenched in that family, which causes people now maybe to get depressed, or people to, there's some anger issues, there's some very unresolved issues, maybe where you have land issues, where we have uh, conflicts that have never been resolved, where you have families fighting, families not getting along because of so many things. So you could be having some exceptions of where some people just say, let me just do as what my ancestors have done. Let me do this as my uncle did. Let me do this as my father did. And underlying that is a lot of trauma and a lot of unresolved conflict. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Yes, we do have that aspect of intergenerational trauma that has been passed from one to the other. And yes, it can happen in one family, and what we say and what we do will be used again as a yardstick for us to measure. What I want to actually say is, when we are looking at intergenerational trauma or intergenerational wounds, then the only reason that the wounds are moved from one generation to another is because they haven't been healed, or they haven't been met at that point. And that's what I meant when I said that if we sought help, if we gave that compassion, then those heals would be healed. And when you move to the next, it becomes an issue of now we are looking at it differently. If we change the perspective of your grandfather died of suicide, your father died of suicide, so you're going to do it, it's because we haven't have that open conversation of this is what happened to him for whatever reason at that time. This happened to your dad for whatever reason at this time. But yes, there is that intergenerational trauma which we all try to get away from by healing ourselves, not to pass it on to the next generation. Thank you very much, Tom, for bringing that up. Malion?
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to ask, like, me, I'm an occupational therapist, and I oftenly engage with patients in daily routine and meaningful activities. From your perspective, how can I safely integrate suicide awareness into these occupational based sessions without crossing territories of other professionals like psychology? Thank you.
Malion, your microphone is not very clear. Could you repeat that again, please?
Okay, sorry. I was just asking, like, I, as an occupational therapist, I often engage with patients in daily routines and meaningful activities. I can get maybe for suicidal during the sessions. So I was asking, how can I, as an occupational therapist, safely integrate this suicide awareness into the occupation based sessions without crossing maybe territories like for professional like psychology and other professionals?
Ah, okay, I hear you. And what you're asking is how do you integrate suicide prevention at your workplace as an occupational therapist?
Yes.
This is something you can do by actually talking about it, like opening up with your patients or your clients when you're looking at them and you see a downward slide, because you always have to be aware when you're dealing with patients, because the little comments that they would make, the things they would say, and then that would bring up a conversation for you to be able, even during your activities, it will bring up that conversation of um how about suicide, or what what do you think about it? That is not the only way you can get help. So even whatever workplace it is, and especially occupational therapists, you could, and other areas, you could actually just involve it. If something happens like that around you, talk about it with openness, non-judgmentally, so that people can see that it is not a bad thing, that they can seek help, and there's a way out of not despairing. Is that okay, Malion? Okay, dear Mr. O'Gara, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to add on what you have said, Karen, that uh, wherever area someone is working in, they can actually support the work of the other professionals. So you, Malion, as an occupational therapist, get facts about suicide, you know, so that when you are sharing with other people, you are also sharing what is factual, not myths. I think that will be very helpful to you. And just having the idea of I'll do what I can, I'll say what I know, and then what I cannot do, what I don't know, then I will refer to the right professional, because it's totally okay for you not to know every other thing, and maybe you will know up to a certain extent, you'll be able to support this person up to a certain extent, and it is okay for you to bring in the aspect of referral. So refer this client, this person, to that right professional who will help them better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Gara. We'll continue with the next slide, which is the economic pressures on the youth. This is actually something that has caused a lot of people to despair, especially the youth age between 25 and 35, where we have very many graduates. 20% are graduates and living in informal settlements, and there's a lot of job competition. Right, rent is rising, responsibilities are just getting higher, the economic status is getting low. I mean, the finances is getting low, and peer comparison fuel hopelessness and contribute to the rising suicide rates. This is happening a lot among the youth, and especially now in Kenya, where we see that young people just they despair so easily. I can't say it's easily because it's a psychological issue, but when there is no hope, when there's nothing to look forward to, then the easiest way is to just harm themselves, to die by suicide because they don't have any hope. We have like the young gentleman who jumped off the bridge at Juja. I think it was last week, and the only reason, from what I've gathered, that he jumped off the bridge was because he had been denied help, the school fees for the school. So he just thought that that was the end. But trying to tell people that you have to be aware, don't let people just lose hope, is something that we all have to learn, all of us, and create employment for others. Do we have any comments on the youth unemployment and hopelessness? Any comments, questions? No. Yes, Malian, then Mr. Ogara. Malian? Okay. Mr. Ogara, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. If you look at it well, actually the current generation, the most of the youthful population, the most important thing for them is money. So they are looking for money in in all ways, all manners. So then, how they look for money, what they do with this money when they get it, drives them to this, to committing suicide. It drives them to uh, that that part of self harm. Even the means of how do they get this money? How do they generate money? How do they make the money? Because most of them are not employed. Then they'll make money through any means that is dubious, that is not helpful to them. But for them, as long as you make money, because they usually say that when you make money, when you have money from any source, the money does not is not written that it came from this source. Money is money; it does anything. And we've seen maybe some of them being in getting into gangs, and then when they have done some deals and the deals go sour, they kill each other, and sometimes they even kill themselves because of the pressure that is within that gang. So then, recently, I've heard statements from this population that the relationships cannot work without money. And so, if they get into a relationship and they are not able to have such huge amount of money that they hypothetically think that that is what is enough for them to have to maintain a relationship, then they kill each other, even they harm themselves because of such depressive experiences, depressive thoughts that come in. So I'm just agreeing that unemployment and these low economic uh, situations really lead to hopelessness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Igara, for pointing that out. And also, yes, Lily.
Thank you so much. I just want to appreciate what Mr. Ogara is talking about. The pressure on our youth is heavy, and many of them cannot cope. Actually, the truth is, I'm a much older generation, and I know that when we were selecting our careers, we were serious about it. We were not looking for money; we were looking to serve. But now it's about money, and so money and desperation. And so many young people are picking up careers like teaching out of desperation or because a parent has pushed them into it. And they go there thinking they are going to grow overnight. And then they work, they discover, oh, this thing does not work overnight. And they start getting frustrated. They look for other options, other openings they cannot find. And I just want to raise a red flag, particularly about the teaching profession. There are so many cases of, people taking away their lives. It becomes very simple. It's no longer a big deal. And so I think what you're doing here today is great. And I wish you would escalate it to people like, I'm just giving an example of young teachers who are thinking they will grow overnight and they get frustrated. And for them, their avenue is to take away their lives. So I'm just commending you for this, and I'm wishing and hoping that you can escalate this to a bigger audience because mental health issues are real. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Lily,
Thank
for
you
your
very
comment.
much, Lily, for your
Um,
comment.
Malion,
I'll add just a bit of because you called me earlier. Okay, for me, I can say like youths they don't know how to work under pressure. True, maybe someone has been experiencing trauma from childhood. Then you find that maybe she have graduated, no job. You know, she loses hope. Life can't work. Yeah, that was my contribution. Thank you.
thank you very much, Malion. But when we look at you have graduated and you don't have a job, I believe what we're trying to tell them is there are other ways to cope. There are other ways to make money, and not the dubious ways that are just going to keep that will end up bringing you to a place where it's not. And also educating the youth that, as Lily said, it doesn't happen at once. You don't start working at 25 and own a house, a car, a family all at once. These things are things that you grow slowly with, because that also ties with what Mr. Igara is saying. For us to have a relationship, we have to have this particular amount of money. What educating the youth to tell them that all these things come as you grow older, as you grow in your careers, in what you are doing, because then they have very high expectations when they are 25 and 26 and up till the age of 30. And when these expectations are not met, then your mental health just goes haywire. And the easiest way is self harm, because you want a way out. And hence, again, the same youth are the ones who are open minded, they know, but they will not reach out for help. They talk about it. In this age of the internet, we go back and go and do our own counseling for ourselves with ChatGPT, with whatever AI generators that are there. And then we take those solutions, and then when they don't work, the youth feel like either way they've lost. They couldn't get they got the information from AI, it didn't work, but they'll not go and seek help and take actually mentoring steps, or take value set goals and start small goals and start going on. And now then they also have just decided the best way is to just self-harm. It's a big issue, and also the fact that they don't even fear death and they don't care. Basically, they just don't. That's my opinion when it comes to the youth. Yes, there might be the unemployment, but there are other ways of making money slowly and growing into the wealth as opposed to wanting to work today and get all the wealth there and then. Thank you very much. Yes, John Wara.
Okay. What I can aspect of the economic is the issue of gambling. We find that majority of youth now are in gambling, and they end up spending a lot of money and they're losing. So whenever maybe they lose such a huge amount of money, they end up committing suicide. So it's something which is very common because nowadays the youth, they want quick money. And that's why those who are in the betting business, they are all over in our estate. Now they are in our estate, in our towns, they are all over because of the disparitions that youth are facing. They want quick money. They have open shops for gambling. So they spend most of their time gambling, and the end of it, they lose. So it's something that needs to be regulated so that they don't take advantage of, since the youth are idle, they can just engage in gambling so that they become rich. So something needs to be done on gambling issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for bringing that up because those are some of the issues that we are looking into as to why they want this quick money. How are they getting this quick money, and how can that such activities be um, vetted so that they do not cause so much harm? Because this is gambling and other addictions also bring a lot of problems because once they have gotten to their lowest, and we know with all addictions you get to a point where you get to your lowest, the shame and the guilt that comes with it makes you want to just go out to take the shortest route out. So when people are doing the gambling, when people are doing a lot of drinking, or people are using substances, the idea is to get them when they're there and try to help them when they're there. Sometimes they don't want, depending on how long they have been there and how much of the addiction has taken them, how much that behavior is in tune with them. But when you get youth who are doing that as much, it's giving them chatting with them and having interviews, motivational interviews, where you ask them, what is the good about this? What's the bad about this? What's the end and what is that? Making it so interactive with them so that at some point you will be able to get through to one or two, because at the end of the day, whatever little money they get, they put it back into the gambling, always hoping to get that big amount of money, which they never ever end up getting. Thank you very much, John. Marlene, is your hand raised up?
No, no,
Yeah,
no,
we'll go
no.
to community. Okay, we'll go to community prevention. One of the ways that we can do help and reduce is doing the gatekeepers. Gatekeepers is actually a cause that has been WHO, where everybody is taught about it. Teachers are trained, traditional healers, border riders, church elders. We are taught how to recognize the signs. For instance, what John is talking about when you're looking about children youth who are doing gambling, you know that gambling creates vulnerability for them to actually self harm. Too much substance abuse also causes them vulnerable to be able to self-harm. So talking to them and teaching them how to do these things so that they can be able to open up that conversation within, right down at the grassroots, that we are talking about it and we are able to see the signs and symptoms so that we can stop people being done. Gatekeepers course it was given by WHO. It has its standard ways, and there are quite a number of people who do that training, I included. And we do that training to show you how you can handle somebody who is right there who wants to commit suicide if you have found that person, or looking at the signs when they're getting to commit suicide, when they have the suicide ideations. The other things we look at is the community safety nets, talking about it openly within barazas, in schools, especially in schools. It normalizes help seeking. because then it is an open conversation. It is not something that is hidden under, because at this point in Kenya where we find an 8-year-old community suicide, it begs us to look at what it is we are talking about with the school children. We need to talk to them openly about it and explain to them it is not the way out. There are other ways where we can seek help. And also when we are doing community mobilization and having different forums talking about it. It doesn't matter what kind of forum you have, whether it is in marketing, whether it's in teaching, whether you're doctors, talking about it openly and saying, this is how it is. This is somebody who has suicide ideations. Can they get help here? And talking about it so that people can know that there is help out here for people who are struggling with such ideations. Then we also look at faith, the leaders of faith. Um, Thank you very much, Lily. Now we look at the faith. In church, we have, I think, 90%. We have imams, we have the Muslims, we have the Christians, we have the Hindus. We all have places where we go for worship, regardless. And at these places is one of the places where we can seek help and not be shunned. That's the way it's supposed to be. However, at the moment, people in churches, people in the I forget what they're called, mosques, in the temples, they don't talk about it openly. So it still has that stigma within the faith leaders. If we could have conversations with the faith leaders, if we could have open conversations, forums where we can actually give them the help of understanding that with the gatekeepers training, they're able to identify and what they can do in their situations where they can seek, they can refer their congregants for help. We have this, I speak about the Catholic Church at the moment because I'm a Catholic. A while ago, Catholics, as I said before, if you committed suicide, nobody would come to bury you. Nobody would, none of the priests or the clergy would come for your funeral, for the funeral. And yet, it is a right where when you die, they have to come and inter. It's an act of mercy. But if it was suicide, it was not done, and that has been for a very, very, very long time, as far as I can remember. However, in the recent past, I think from the year 2015, this was changed. It is still not catching up in some areas, especially in the rural areas. But if it is made known out there, then that is something that can be accepted. We talk about all the other denominations and religions speaking about suicide on the pulpit, speaking about suicide right as a faith leader is something that can actually be helpful for the people so that they can understand that this is something that you can seek help. Let us not shy away from talking to congregants about suicide, teaching them, telling them there's places, there's Acadian where you can just call at any time, 24 hours a day, and they will give you help, steps for what to do so that you can be able to get some hope and move on. Now, the initiative of suicide prevention aligns with the National Suicide Prevention Strategy of 2021-2026, which actually stated that by the year 2026, they wanted to have reduced suicide mortality by 10%. However, by the last check in 2025, it had not reduced, it had increased. So with forums like this, we can be able to help people prevent anybody. It doesn't have to be the psychologist, it doesn't have to be the doctors, it doesn't have to be, it can be you and it can be me who walks across somebody and sees something about them that calls for help. Any suggestions about how we can help when it comes to preventing suicide? Suggestions, questions? Okay,
Hello?
we'll talk about the policies.
Hello?
Yes, Tom. Yes,
Thank you,
Tom.
Karen. Uh, I'm happy because you're talking about the challenges that we have in families and religious institutions, and even in our schools and also in our employer places that we spend most of the time and the places that we are supposed to seek help and places where you are supposed to feel the safest. I have always, and maybe from experience and what I have observed, is that sometimes when you understand the underlying factors of why some people become suicidal, um, maybe it's depression, it's frustration, it is pain, it is unhealed trauma, it is maybe they are feeling disenfranchised, others are trapped in probably a situation where they are feeling a huge loss, or maybe it's an injustice situation, whatever the reason. I think one of the biggest perpetrators of someone to decide to take their own life is the frustration and being let down and being castigized uh, by the people they trusted the most. And mostly it is when they feel, oh my God, I have been misunderstood. So there is, on top of, most people will give out, will talk about it, even if it is not direct, but they will give out the signs. And even when the people see the signs, someone is told, "Why are you being soft? Why are you being so stupid?" Even some people actually even are told, "Okay, fine. If you want to take your own life, go ahead. Nani amekukataza? Your life is yours. Your maisha ni yako. Kila mtu na maisha yake. I mean, you're made fun of. You're criticized. You're heckled. You're belittled. And so I have, in retrospect, been one of the biggest propagators of, in some cases and in most cases, family and friends and these churches are some of the worst places for people who are facing mental health challenges. And unfortunately, it's not easy to let's say, like, remove someone from their family and maybe take them to a safe place, new environment, new friends, new air, new way of thinking. But this could be also an alternative, like a safe, like safe places, or where people are allowed to travel or live some of these uh, situations where now they can actually go and recover and maybe heal or look at life in a different perspective. Because look at, sometimes someone who comes for counseling, or someone comes from therapy, or a friend will come and tell you, okay, fine, can we talk? But the friend is still trapped in the same marriage, in the same family, with the same employer, in the same situation. And sometimes it's not easy to get them out or to tell them to leave. And when they go back, even the counseling and the therapy might not help. So this could be in the long term, or probably one of the possible alternatives of trying to separate the people who are facing, or rather are feeling suicidal and are facing these challenges from their current environment. Because in many cases, the current environment is an enabler, is the one that actually pushes them to finally take their own life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Um, thank you very much for your comment. We'll let Malion talk, and then I'll say something about what you have said. Malion, is your hand up?
Hello?
John?
Oh, okay.
No,
Thank you, Karen. Okay, on the issue of gatekeepers, the leaders, religious leaders, teachers, and the rest, I think this issue awareness need to be, they need to be aware of this mental health awareness. The first thing I can say is that I have this situation which I don't know how to go about it, because no, August is a mental suicide awareness. So like last year, I went to my former work station where I created awareness to the staff, and it was successful. So this year I wanted now to move to maybe to colleges, the technical colleges around. So I went to uh, It is just a technical institution within my area. So I just went there to create awareness on suicide awareness. And then the one in charge told me that the topic is so sensitive. There's no need to create about awareness. Just pick another one. So they proposed that to and go and talked about drug and substance abuse. So the date when I was supposed to go and present it, when I went there, then she changed. She told me, "Oh, they have another meeting." So I'm just wondering, is it something that they don't want to talk about? They are resistant about this talk because it's like I've gone there like 3 times to create more awareness because I was just volunteering, just doing it freely to the student. But here is the case where the one is in charge is just like I don't know. So in that situation, how can I go about it? Because it seems most of the those one is in charge. Yeah, I think that they are the one who needs this more of this awareness than even those the let's say like the student or maybe like leaders, church leaders. They're the one that need this information first because it seems that there's somehow a resistance or there's a lot of stigma or maybe they feel somebody comes to talk about mental health. It's like so it's more of associated with madness. So I don't know how can I handle such a situation. Can I proceed to still go on, or I stopped about that issue? That is my question, Karen.
Thank you very much, John. Your question and what Tom said, they actually tie with one another. The idea that when you fear, when you don't understand something, when you don't know about something, and there are very many myths that have been put across about the same situation. For instance, mental health. There's a lot of myths when it comes to mental health. Like mental health is only for people who have mental disorders, people who die by suicide, people who have mental disorders, or they've been bewitched, or they that it's an ostracized topic. Not many people want to talk about anything to do with mental health, and more especially those who are of the older generations, because they are the ones who mainly don't understand it. The younger generation understand it, but they don't take it as seriously as it should be taken care of. However, the older generation look at mental health wellness or mental health issues as a taboo. So when something is a taboo, not many people want to find out anything about it. They don't talk about it. They don't want to pass on information about it. And that is why we are here, because we want to create this awareness everywhere where you go, to talk about it. The school where you're going, or the college where you're going, where you want to go and create awareness, do not give up, because if you give up, then your chance of actually passing over the message about preventing suicide will pass. However, you will get a lot and a lot and a lot of resistance. I'll give you an example. I have come across people who are leaders, and we want to talk about mental health, and it was just blocked down. No, we are not mad. We don't need it. And you try and explain mental health is not mad. It's not quote unquote madness. I really don't like using the word mad. People with mental disorders. And this becomes an issue, because then they're not able to face exactly what is going on with the people who are under them, in terms of the congregants, in terms of the community. They're not able to help them, because you'll find people who, removing them from their safe space and taking them to another area, as Tom says, is not logistically, might not be possible at that particular time. But coping in that particular area where you are, and you've gone for your counseling, being open, you'll be able to move, you'll be able to take yourself out of that situation. Because if we give it a reason why, if you stay there it will never change, then it becomes a little bit more complicated, because we are giving them more and more opportunities, giving them more and more rope to hang themselves, basically. So speaking about it openly, families who will know that their person is going to commit suicide and has threatened to, it might be in the heat of argument. And if it is in the heat of argument, then when people have calmed down, we need to go back and ask, why would you say this? And it'll be conflict resolution then, and then they'll be coming to an understanding. But because there's no conflict resolution, the words have hurt somebody emotionally. They just keep building and building, and then it comes to a resentment that is not controllable. Because you've told me to do this, I am going to do it. But if we have that conflict resolution, if we know somebody who is struggling, counseling is not a taboo like it used to be. Counseling is not for the unwell. Counseling is for just when you can't cope, go for counseling and they'll help you see things in a different perspective. And hence you'll be able to move, you'll be able to cope and move, make a decision to move to the next step. If we keep saying that there's no way out, you have to move, the people who are not able to move completely from where they are, the logistics become too complicated. And then we kill their hope, the little hope that they would have. Then we return them to the hopelessness. You have to go back there and nenda ukavumilie itajisort. We also say this, nenda ukavumilie, Mungu atakusort. You see, instead of pointing somebody in the right direction and telling them, please go and speak to somebody who does not know you, who is completely objective of everything, so that they can be able to give you a different perspective. I hope that helps you, Tom and John. Any other comment? We look at the policies and the campaigns. In January 20, the legal reforms, the January 2025 repeal of the colonial era suicide laws reframes attempts as health issues, encouraging urban residents to seek care without fear of legal repercussions. And this is one of the main points when it comes to self harm and dying by suicide. Many people did not seek help because even then, as a counselor, you are actually expected to report if somebody was trying, who had attempted to take their own lives. And if they had and they hadn't succeeded, then they ended up in Kamiti, Langata, or one of the prisons. So because of that, people don't talk about it. So you see, this is something that has only changed in January. And this is a mindset that has been there since 1963, huko wazungu wakikuja. Hence, we have to slowly change, slowly encourage people to seek help because it is a health issue. Some of the people who die by suicide, it's not just about them losing hope. It could be a mental disorder. It could be different addictions that have led them to that, different substances that they have taken that have led them to that. So it all boils down to it being taken as a health issue, as opposed to it is just somebody woke up today and decided that they're going to end their own lives. The national strategy, the 2021 to 2026 national strategy, tasks civil society with advocacy, pesticide regulation, and bridge barrier installation, embedding lived experience voices in the city policy tables. Things like pesticides. I'm trying to remember there's a liquid that we used to use kuosha ng'ombe when you're taking them to the deep. That was one of the most of the commonly used substances for a long time when it came to taking your own life. But at the moment, part of the policies trying to make these things reduce the risk is by making sure that pesticides have regulation. There's a lot of advocacy like we are doing, and then as we finish from here, we go and tell others, and the bridges that have been built to ensure that they have barriers, and helping people also know how to detect the signs and what to do when it comes to somebody who's actually trying or threatening to take their own lives. People who have suicide ideations, people who are actually at the point of doing it, what can you do to help them take steps back? And there's a part of the trainings that we do when we look at somebody and ask them, why are you doing it and what can we do? Can we talk about this? And try to dissuade them and then get them help for what they can do. In many institutions are now, like, I know Safaricom, I think it's Safaricom, also actually they have embraced mental health so well, and yet they still struggle with the same issues. You have the KMPDU and Doctors Association. They all have embraced mental health, but yet they still struggle because the stigma that comes from outside still stops them from actually doing something about it. County action and NGO works. These are things that have been done in the past in Kenya. For instance, we had Kisumu's multisectoral plan. In 2023, multisectoral plan unites health, education, and transport sectors to establish counseling corners and enforce pesticide control measures. This is something that is still happening in Kisumu. They have different free counseling centers, but that is just for a couple of sessions. Then they're referred to different other counselors. You cannot buy pesticides or just walk around with pesticides in Kisumu because it is illegal for them. So this is something that they have embraced because they saw how bad the suicide rate was in Kisumu. In 2024, Stalling's 2024 Nairobi Walk mobilized 500 citizens from hospitals and arts to broadcast hope and demonstrate coordinated campaigns, which is something we can always do, because even last week, I think in Nyeri, the KCPA held a walk, and they were also doing suicide prevention, and they had so many attendees and so many questions to answer. So that this shows me that many people are also keen. Community members want to know and they want to learn what to do about it. These local initiatives show how coordinated campaigns can translate global targets into visible impactful local action. Community involvement. By involving the community members and stakeholders, these campaigns create a supportive environment that encourages help seeking and reduces stigma. This with community be when the community is involved in everything that is going on, once they are aware, once they know how to go about it and what it is all about, it is not a curse, it is not bewitching, it is not something that they have been told to do, then it is understood as a psychological disorder at that particular moment when somebody is going through a psychological crisis and they're not able to move to the next step, and this is the only way out. The problem with talking about suicide is we have been talking about suicide in such a negative connotation, and it has stuck in the minds of many. As Tom said, that a child says, I'm going to kill myself, and the parent says, eno kajue maisha ni yako. Those are things that stick. So that is an option that has been planted in somebody's mind. So when they're unable to cope psychologically, they take that because that is an opening that was created way back. They can't even remember when. So helping people know that seeking help, going for counseling, calling a friend who understands what they can say to you about at that particular time, and creating different safe spaces. These are things that can be done so that people can come and share what is going on within themselves, and they can get help. They can be referred to the different professionals who can help them if they need any help. Ooh. Help is within reach. And with this, I want to show a number of places where we have help. We have befrienders in Kenya, and the telephone number is there, who you can call at any time, 24 hours, and it is free. They speak to you, and if you're not able to sort out the issue at that particular moment, they're able to refer you to the nearest counselor or mental health practitioner who will be able to help you go through whatever it is you're going. We also have Nisikize, which is a toll-free number, EMFKM, EMKF It's also a free toll number. They all give psychological first aid for free. We have Oasis Mental Hospital, and the number is there. They will take residential care, where they take in patients who have tried or have the suicide ideations, and you want them to go and stay there for a while. Oasis Mental Hospital is open for that. Acadian Harmony Counselling, our hosts today, are ones who you can call at any given time, and they will actually give you psychological first aid, and they will offer therapy in a subsidized way. This is in different areas. Oasis Acadian Harmony Counselling is in South Sea. Oasis Mental Hospital is in Peponi Road, off Peponi Road, Samuel Kabete. Um, our call to action. What do we think we should do now, moving forward, after we have learned all this? We scale up the gatekeeper training. This is in slums to ensure that more community members can recognize and respond to warning signs of suicide, including to border borders, to teachers, to in offices, in corporate offices. We can do the gatekeeper training, helping to understand what are the signs of what are the causes, what are the myths, how do you handle somebody who is actually having ideations but has not got to the end where they want to do it. If you find somebody who's about to do it, what can you do about it, so that you can be able to help them? And this is a training that can be done to so many people, and it will help open up the conversation about prevention of suicide. We can embed mental health in community health. Mental health is actually not just excluded in organizations like churches, institutions, offices, and stuff like that. Even in hospitals, there's some hospitals, if you went to for mental health issues, they wouldn't know what to do with you. They'd actually just send you to Madare, and yet you just need a little bit of help there. With the community health workers who go round in house, there is actually a proposal for them to be able to, as they're doing their visits, they're also checking on your mental health. That is a training that will also be done for them. To run media campaigns against stigma, this would want to encourage all those who are in the corporate world, all those who are able to help run these media campaigns against the stigma, and also give solutions, give ways out, and encourage more of seeking help as opposed to giving up. Then also using the national registries for evidence. Now with the new law of decriminalization of suicide, hopefully we'll be able to get the correct numbers of how it is, so that we can be, when the policies are being made, they're able to understand the dire need of this particular intervention across the mental health board and for all the community. Are there any ideas of how we can add that I haven't included? Any comments? Yes, Lily.
Um, Thank you so much, Karen. This was awesome. I am about to log out, but I just want to appreciate this presentation and the discussion that has gone on here. And I hope and pray that we can spread more love than anything else, because most of the time people who go that direction are people who have been shunned by society. And I just pray that we would love one another more deeply. When you hear or see somebody talk like that, just put your arms around them. I've experienced this today. And so I'm talking about something that I have just dealt with. One of my relatives is in hospital and is so disturbed that he's telling me he doesn't think it's worth living anymore. So I've had to do a lot of loving, a lot of counseling, just so that he knows that he's not alone. So let us spread love. Even as I leave, I want to thank you and thank you again for allowing me to enjoy this awesome presentation. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Lily, for joining us. Thank you very much, and thank you for your input. Pole sana for what has happened to your relative. May he get help. Any other comment? Okay, other things that we can do is transform cities into support networks, where we have Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa into networks of empathy, where open conversation, economic inclusion, and vigilant neighbors replace silence and shame. This is something I think when they introduced the Nyumba Kumi, this was something that was to be looked into, have to be looked into, but how well it works when it comes to self harm is what is not something I have information about. Champion hotlines and resources. Wherever you are working, wherever you are at, always have these hotlines at your fingertips, because they could be of real help to somebody else. It might not just be you or somebody you know, but anybody who is within yourself, within your reach, and you'll be able to reach them. Again, I repeat those centers. We have befrienders. The number is on the slide. We have EMKF. We have Oasis Mental Health Hospital. We have Acadian Counselling. And for all your counseling information, you can come to Acadian. Um, to empower every citizen. As you have seen from this presentation, prevention of self harm is not just for the doctors, it's not just for the for the psychologists or counselors. It is something that we can all do together. Once we foster a culture of care and support, like Lily has said as she was leaving, ensuring that nobody faces their struggles alone. You are not alone. We are all together in this journey called life. Thank you very much. And now I'll take all your questions. Oh, just a point to add before I finish. I have a WhatsApp group that is called the Listening Lounge. It's a community where I have created a place for a safe space for people to actually come and share what is going on within themselves. It is private and confidential. If you want to speak or just open and you don't want to go for counseling, you're questioning if you need the counseling or not, you can join our community, and there we can be able to speak about it and see how we can help one another. If you want, you can reach me on my number, which is 0714 726 154, and I will give you the link of the WhatsApp community group. The number is 0714 726 154, and I will give you the link to the community group. And I will hand over now to Mr. Igara. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was wonderful. That was awesome. We can appreciate Karen in whatever way that you feel you can. Personally, I've chosen the heart, the clap, and the flowers. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I have gained a lot. Um, before I welcome Tom to say something, just for before we close, I want to appreciate all of us for taking time, using your resources to be here this evening. And just like uh, uh, Lily has said, this was really insightful and helpful to all of us. Let's spread the love, let's spread the message. After this, I will share the link. We are going to upload this conversation. Karen, maybe you can mute yourself. I think there's an echo. So there's going to be we are going to upload this on YouTube, YouTube channel for Acadia. We will share the link in our WhatsApp group that we have for such forum. So if you have not joined the WhatsApp group, look at the inbox, the chat box here. You will get the number to lead you to the WhatsApp group. Thank you so much. Welcome again. We'll have such a forum again next month. I want to pass this to Tom.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Evan. Uh, it has been a wonderful. I hope everybody they can hear some. Hello.